Hey guys, sorry we started a minute late, but this is a special one and everything like that. I had to be casually late or whatever like that. We got a special one here. We got two good buddies of mine that, and again, in the video game industry out there and everything like that. These are two guys that are respected, right? But the main thing that we're here together right now to talk about is game collecting, right? And these two guys, right? Besides not only game collectors, right? Because that's broad when you say video game, just like when you say video game industry, but just collecting in general. And they're my contemporaries, right? So we're bringing that perspective from 80s, 90s, right? We were probably still in diapers in the 80s and stuff like that, but 80s, 90s, 2000s, and even present time. But at the same time, it's just giving people the perspective, right? Because it's crazy when you think when I think 20 years ago about video games, I'm thinking about what I'm saying, the NES stuff, right? But reality 20 years ago is PS2 stuff, man, GameCube stuff. So Super Mario, Sunshine is 20 years ago. So it's like, oh my gosh, somebody posted something up that in the 90s, right? Us three here talking about the 90s is like when we were in the 90s, people talking about the 60s, man. That's scary, dude. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? I'm happy to be alive and all that good stuff. Real quick before I introduce everybody, who we got in the chat. James LaSalle, hi. Shout out to James. Luciano, thanks for joining. The lovely and beautiful Liliana LaSalle, right? The stream has started. Sorry again, we were a minute late. You know what I'm saying? Liliana is excited. Shout out to Luciano again, Super Mario World. Yeah, that's that. So think about that. That's 30 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, or almost, right? Almost that kind of time frame, right? So anyway, introducing everybody, right? We had a special guest, Tjacks. Well, we had Shadow on our show. We was on Tjacks' show a couple weeks ago. Tjacks, introduce yourself, and specifically after you introduce yourself and tell everybody what you like collecting, why. You know what I'm saying, and how, and get into how expansive your collection is. And one more thing,
All right.
what's your most prized possession?
Ooh, well, we getting deep today. All right, so let's get it. All right, so good, everybody. My name is TJ. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. And yeah, so what do I like to collect? Okay, so to break it down to everybody, I love to collect 80s and 90s nostalgia. Mostly I love to collect the 80s and 90s clothes, particularly the jerseys, mostly the hats, and some of the starter jackets and stuff like that. I also really enjoy to collect VHS. Believe it or not, I have a really big VHS collection. I've been collecting VHS since I was probably, maybe like 7-ish years old. And
Nice.
deep down in my collection, I have one of my VHS, which is the Power Rangers. And this one starring Trini. This is the High Five episode. One of my favorites. This is a hidden gem of mine. And I also collect a lot of video games. So yes, I have a very about 100 to 200 video games in my collection. I know it's small compared to a lot of people. I know that's right. But for the most part, I love to collect PlayStation and GameCube. Those are my two favorite systems. Yeah, good to meet you all.
So, Tjacks, so what's your most prized possession right now in your collection? And it don't have to be most valuable, right? We'll get into that and talk about value in terms of monetary, right, or what somebody would pay for
Okay.
it, but valuable to you.
My Chicago Bulls starter. My Chicago Bulls chalk line jacket. My mistake. My favorite
Oh,
thing in my
nice.
collection.
Nice. All
Thank
right,
you.
all right. So segueing over to that game, Dragon, right? Same thing. Introduce yourself, right? Tell us, what you like collecting, with any, anything like that, and at the same time, what's your most value to you? If it is something that's monetary value, that's cool too. But most value to you.
Oof, that's a tough one. There's so many things in this room, unfortunately. Well, that Game Dragon, I like to consider myself, I guess, a game culture connoisseur. I don't want to say expert because being an expert means that you know a little bit of everything, and I don't know everything yet, but I am definitely knee deep in the culture. Been gaming since, I don't know, I was like 3 years old. I think the first time I picked up a controller and my dad had to take it away from me. He's like, "You don't know how to play Atari, stop that." But my most prized collection, I will say, because it's a collection, it's not an item, would be my Metal Gear collection. And, Kojima,
Nice.
whether you like him or hate him, he has definitely pushed the culture forward, right? Showed us that we can actually create something that was almost cinematic, right? And so, I remember the first time launching Metal Gear and hearing the music, and even though the CGI graphics now are nothing compared to what we can do, I mean, what they did then to what we do now. Back then it was mind-blowing, right? I was like, wow, this is like amazing. And I've been a fan ever since. And so I have almost everything. The only item that I am missing is from the executive board of directors. They gave out a specific series for Snake Eater that values about $4,000. It was like a whole collector's kit, signed, autographed with all the devs and everything. But I've collected almost everything else, and through the years, I've met Kojima at several different functions because they limit the amount of things they'll let him sign, right? And he's a really nice guy. So he would sign everything if they let him, but he's got people that are there to like squeeze his shoulder and be like, hey, move on. So it's taken me a few years to get him to sign some of my more prized possessions, like my Metal Gear 1, getting that NES version signed, getting my PSP signed, and getting some of those other awesome items. It's crazy because in like my collection, when we talk about like NES things, like you could see right here, like I keep these very close to my heart. And
Nice.
Ninja Gaiden 2, right? Of course, I have like 3 versions of this, which is crazy. This is the one that I keep loose just to show. And then I know you know this, AK, a little bit of Castlevania. Yeah. And so it's interesting because I think, I know we're going to touch on this a little later, but collecting has really changed over time, right? When I heard limited edition before, it used to include a figure, a steel box, a keychain, something, right? Something physical. And now limited edition is something digital, where you get, a piece of clothing, a costume change for your character. And one of the things that worries me is that as a collector, I feel we're moving more from ownership to renting, because I feel like this is renting the item for a few years, right? Because when these servers go offline, I'll never have that gauntlet again, or that special gun that had a couple extra hit damage points on it. And so it's an interesting time, I think, for the new generation. And this is where we're at a crossroads, right? Where you have things like Limited Run that keep releasing physical copies of games that we're used to in the past, but also new games to make sure that collectors can kind of still have ownership of the things they want. But you hear things like, I'm a big PS Vita fan. I know there are very few of us out there, but I still collect as many of the games as I can. I go through Play Asia, I eBay, and that store's shutting down, along with the PSP store, along with the PS3 store. So what does that mean to folks that invested and bought these digital items, these artifacts that were limited, that made them feel special when they were in the game? They're like, look at me, I have this special collector's edition garb that you don't have. Well, nobody's going to have it, because now these servers are going to be gone, and you're just left with a game that you can't even play anymore. So what now?
And Game Dragon, that you brought up some great points, right? Because that's stuff that we're definitely going to be talking about, and like what you said, ties into, that's the in-game transactions and in-game items. But that really ties into a lot of the stuff that I think when we talk about future gaming, which is it's right now with the non-fungible transactions, the NFTs, right?
Absolutely.
Which is the hot thing. We're not having a drinking game, guys. So anytime you hear NFT, don't drink, because all you guys might be drunk at the third section. But we're gonna segue into those topics, because those are great. Game Dragon, what we were just about to discuss, right? For me, I collect systems more than the games themselves. I collect the systems. I like them to be in box and working order. But I collect systems mostly, and you guys have seen it in the game room and stuff like that. And I'll explain later, why I do that versus games. There are certain games that I'll collect, certain series. I love you brought that up. I had all the Castlevanias at one point, and then they broke into the home and stole them all. But I had all the Castlevanias, and the prize one at my time back then was the Black Label Castlevania Symphony of the Night. But now you can get Symphony of the Night on your iPhone or Android for like $1.99 on sale. right? And if you got gift cards that you get on Black Friday for like 10% off, and you know, on the channel we're always telling people how to get good deals, right? Get the gift cards, you know, get them on sale when they're 10% off or whatever deals. You know, do whatever you can, and then buy them when they're on deal. You end up double saving. A trick I do too. I got an Apple card, so anything on Apple games, and I get 3% back, you know, and stuff like that. Or I have an Amazon card. A lot of people don't understand that. I bought a PS5. I got my PS5 from Amazon on release day, right? But I got it for 5% off. I'm trying to say ship to my house day one, 5% off because I got an Amazon card, right? So these are the things where I'm always trying to get good deals and everything like that. But most prized possession that I have, and then we'll segue into talking about some of the stuff, you know, Shadow, and I'll start with you because I know I interrupted you. You were about to say it.
No, no.
But, I would think, and I just got this one, and I'm going to do an unboxing. I got a completely boxed Virtual Boy. And I know it sucks as a system or whatever like that and all that stuff. But the reason to me it's my most prized one right now is, and I know, Shadow, you have these. So when you talk, because it's one that I wanted when I was little, but it was like it sucked ass or whatever like that. Sorry, I'm probably not going to get monetized now for that one, but the one I really always wanted when I was little and could never get is a Neogeo, right? Because that thing was just crazy expensive.
It's expensive, Will. That's why.
You know, but we'll talk with Shadow because I know Shadow's probably got all of them.
I wish.
And everything like that. So yeah, that's mine. But just wait, man. Tell us a little bit about your AES and all that collecting that you got, right? And your love for that system. But also the first topic I want to talk about is collect and play or collect dust. And what I mean by that is, do you collect to play the stuff, then put it on the shelf, maybe take it off the shelf every 2 or 3 years to play it? Or do you really just collect dust, meaning you buy it to put it on a shelf and wipe off the dust every 2 or 3 years, or send it to Iwata or whatever the hell it is that I'm probably butchering. I think they're head of Nintendo and and the organization that grades. Well, talk to us, man. Talk to us.
So for me, being a true collector means that you actually enjoy the item, right? You know, I think there's different types of collect. There's people that collect for money. You know, they would just want to sell it. It's a transactions for them. They buy for 200, they sell it for 3. It's a flipping game. There's folks that they buy and they never want to touch it. It gets sealed, authenticated, certified, and then put on a shelf, and no one ever looks at it. And, you know, I remember having a conversation with someone in the industry when I traveled to Microsoft back in the day, and they were about to release their Xbox, and we were talking about gaming. And, you know, the one thing that he said, and always resonates in me, is games were made to play, not to sit tucked away somewhere. You know, and the beauty of a physical collection, and you understand this because you collect systems, and so do I, is a year, 2, 3 down the line, when you have that nostalgic moment, you watch something on TV, someone brings it up, you have the ability to pull this thing, whether it's a Sega CD or a PlayStation 1 or a Game Boy Advance, whatever it is, pull it out, connect it, play, and relive that joy that game brought you for you know, a few hours or days or weeks or months, depending. If it was Final Fantasy, it was probably months. But there is something about the tactile experience of enjoying a game with the original hardware, in my opinion. Like, yeah, you could buy all these collections on the phone, you know, and walk away with 1,000 games in your phone and connect it to a controller and play the game. It's not the same experience, you know. There's something missing there. Maybe it's because in my childhood I couldn't afford a lot of these things, you know, and so I remember having to wait until my birthday and Christmas to get a couple of games, and I had to really think about which games I wanted. And so when I think about the Neogeo, you know, and it is an expensive system, it's interesting because it's a system that I believe has retained a lot of its value and even gained more over time. You know, and it's interesting because they're not the greatest games, right? They're good games. They're hard to find. But for me, when I was a child, I remember not being able to get this game, and I wanted Magician Lord so bad, and I wanted, you know, so many of the titles, like Samurai Showdown, like, you you know, it was an experience to walk into the arcade and see and hear Samurai Showdown playing in the background. And the painful part was that you could never bring that experience home. Neogeo was one of the few systems that was a one-to-one experience. You played in the arcade, and then you played at home, and it was the same thing. Cost you an arm and a leg. And so, you know, I don't collect like the games that are worth the most value to, you know, to sell. I collect the games that are worth the most value to me. So for me, it's Samurai Spirits, right? Having the Japanese and the English editions of those, you know, Fatal Fury, you know, like things like that are nostalgic. I'm a huge fighting game fan, and so across all the genres of systems, you will see that I always gun for the fighting games first. You know, to make sure that I complete that collection. So I have Street Fighter on like everything, dude. I don't even know. If it can play, it has it in this house. And then when the MVS cabinet that was just re-released again, the mini cabinet, I was like so diehard for that thing. You don't understand. I was like waiting.
You got to do videos on it, man. You got to post them on the channel because I haven't seen a video on it. And I didn't jump on it because I'm running out of space, man. But you know, I know when you told me,
yeah. And then the Neogeo Mini. I don't know if you guys are familiar.
I got a Mini.
I have every single one released, like all the special editions of those. I have every color variant. And you know, if you go to, you know, and I'm not trying to plug my Instagram, but if you go on my Instagram, I have like videos of like all of them lined up where you could see them all playing in the background, and my wife was like, "What the hell is that noise coming in from your room?" I'm like, "Oh, that's because they're all on." And I just sat there, and this is how you know you're a big gaming geek. I sat there, turned each one on, put each one on a different game, right? And just imagine that I was in this like large arcade by myself, and that's the beauty of, I think.
Record those sounds, and like that could be great background music,
just to hear that, you know what I
mean? You'll laugh. Like people laugh when I'm trying to concentrate or do stuff. Like I turn on like my mini cabinets, and I have like Street Fighter playing in the background and all these things. And you know, some people listen to symphonies, but you know, me, it's hearing Hadouken and, you know, get over here. Those things really get me going, and they get the blood flowing and get me excited about the things I have to do, you know, because we are adults, right? That's the beauty of.
But that's the arcade nostalgia, right? Like
it is.
The crazy thing is all that could be happening. You're in a true arcade, and your mom calls you when you were little.
Yep.
And with all that noise, right? All that stuff, Hadoukens and all that in the background, you know, get over here. You can, that's mom calling me. I'm out. You know what I'm trying to say? You give up your thing or something like that, right? You know, you might, or you die on purpose. But that's crazy, man, and that's real, that nostalgia. But I get what you're saying, Shadow, because it's like before I would sit there, and I've worked from home for a very long time, and I know recently with everything going on, but I used to always listen to music without lyrics, right, in the background while I'm working, right, and so whatever you want to call it, techno, whatever they call it, right, you know, with music without lyrics, so your brain or whatever is not focusing on the lyrics, you're just hearing so you can still focus on the task at hand. But what you're saying with arcade music, that's why I have an office, a studio, and everything like that. I spend my day when I'm working in my game room, surrounded by all that stuff, and it just makes me happy, and a happy person works happier.
Yeah, exactly. You know it brings a lot of joy. You know, don't get yourself in trouble though, because you know you listen to enough Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, you're ready to step outside and start something.
And start fighting people. You know what I'm saying? Luckily we're in a pandemic. But Tjacks, real quick, I know, I want you to get into it, but I know, and you guys feel free to plug, of course, at the end. I'll give you time, your IGs and your YouTube pages. You know, so Liliana's like, yeah, my mom. Yeah, I wasn't quoting Scorpion. I was quoting my mom a little while ago. That's right. You know what I'm saying? Except, you know, and me and Shadow both know we Puerto Ricans, so she throw the chancleta at me and stuff like that, and that's how she would get me over there. But
that's where Ed Boon got it from.
It's probably good. He was seeing all the Puerto Rican parents in his home neighborhood. Tjacks, I know. This is what I love about this one, and one of the things around this, and what I love about your channel and your IG and stuff like that is you go out there, you find the stuff, and you come home and play it. right? And you're sitting there streaming yourself
Yes,
playing
sir.
and stuff. So I know your answer, but get into it. You need
No,
you collect and play or collect or get the stuff to collect dust.
so I actually do two things. Well, I collect to resell and I collect to play.
Mm,
So when I'm
mm,
out on the hunt, I'm looking for two different things. If I'm out on the hunt, I am personally looking for myself at first, and I'm looking for things that I used to have as a kid. So I'm going for the GameCube, original PlayStation, and PlayStation 2. Those are always my big three that I'm looking for. Obviously, we all know that the original Xbox is very cheap. You can see that every single Salvation Army, at every single Goodwill that you guys go to. So those are good for like quick flips like that. So you can find a game like Conker's Bad Fur Day on the N64, quick flip for like what, 50 to 70 bucks on like on Etsy.com, stuff like that. So I'm out there on the hunt personally. It just depends like what I'm feeling for that weekend. Like if I'm going out to antique malls and thrift stores like that, if I know if I'm going to more than like 2 to 3 stores and I'm shopping like that for my online store, I'm definitely gonna look for higher endings, but I don't want to pay that premium price. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna have to do a lot of hunting, a lot of digging and stuff like that, and bring some trade bait with me when I'm out there hunting too. So with that being said, my favorite thing to look for when I'm out hunting are like the sports games, the obscure sports games, and like finding like NCAA 2K14, I mean NCAA 14 on football games, stuff like that for Xbox 360. And I found that a month ago, and I found it, I resold it, and that's the money that I'm using for my collection, so I can buy more video games and stuff like that. So yeah, so the hardest thing to find right now, I would honestly say, are GameCube games. So if you guys are out there on the hunt, please go look for a GameCube. These are easy flips. You guys will get some quick money to add to your collection. So
yeah,
yeah.
and that's a great point, right, TJ? Because I think what you're saying is spot on, right? So you're taking that approach of also being able to flip, right, and kind of fuel,
Yes, sir.
right, be the cash to fuel your collecting. And I know we talked about this when we were on your show with respects to shout out to CJR, right, and everything like that. I
Yes,
think he just
sir. I love
posted.
TJR.
Yeah, I think he just posted his updated game room. So I'm sure he'll talk about it. So he funds
Yep.
his entire collection by buying, keeping what he needs for his collection, and flipping the rest. Right. Again, I think when we talked about it, I have some. This is the NBA. Meaning, this is the NBA in me and everything like that, and working as an executive.
Yep.
So the qualitative and quantitative analysis kind of stuff, where there's a cost associated with time. So, but again, hey man, if he's flipping it, I
Exactly.
don't see his books. He can be way ahead of the game, even take into account his compensating himself for his time, right? And I'm sure with his channel and subscribers and everything like that, he's more than making it up. So I'm
For
gonna go in reverse
sure.
now, and I'm gonna ask you, and I think you kind of answered this right with the flipping and everything like that. If there's anything else you wanted to add into value of games, right? And what I mean by that is, um, we've been collecting for a while, all of us here, right? So how have you seen it before? How do you see it now in terms of value, right? And I don't mean inflation, right? Oh, $100 got you this much groceries
Mhm.
back then, this many games back then. But I mean in some of these games really going up in value, right? And some of the collecting, like you
Totally.
said, GameCube is hot right now, right? But so what
Yeah.
have you seen? And do you think that they're trending in the right direction, or you think it's really a bubble, so to speak?
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest with you. Well, I started to recollect the GameCube back in like 2018, 2019, just to get back into it. And at
Yeah.
that time, the prices were perfect. I was finding Super Mario like Sunshine for like 25, 30 bucks. Now you can't even find a game for less than 60. So that's when I
Wow.
was really starting GameCube. And then obviously when the pandemic came, everything just started to skyrocket for me. So then that's when I had to transition to a different system. So that's when I transitioned to the original PlayStation. And I was collecting that system. And yeah, I think prices are going to keep going up steadily, but they are going to taper off within the next like 2 years, I believe, in my opinion, for the high-end games, like for the really popular titles. Because for me, growing up, the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and original Xbox, that was my nostalgia. That's what I really remember growing up having when I was a kid and stuff like that. So I feel like those are going to keep going up in value and in price. But the other systems, like the original PlayStation and N64, they might start to taper down just a little bit in the next 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
That's just in my opinion. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it just depends on what system that you are looking for. Every system is different, and it just depends at the right time. Because right now, it's time to look for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. That's what I highly recommend to look for if you want to find cheap games and great quality games.
Yeah. Hey, Shadow, how about you? What are your thoughts on that, on value of games again?
So it's interesting because I think Tjacks, you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said it depends on the system, it depends on the era of the system, and then the relationship that people had with the game as well. So your iconic characters, first party Nintendo stuff, I think is always gonna grab a lot of money because Nintendo is very much like Disney. They create this false sense of need to get the games immediately because they make it feel like it's going to go in the vault, right? And that's not the case. Where I feel, when you look at Microsoft, the reason why the value is so much lower is because they never create that false sense of limited ability or availability for their stuff. That you can find these Xboxes, but the same thing is look at Game Boy Advances, for example, right? The SPs, like you could find those, you could buy those almost anywhere, right? And you can get them for between 150 to 200 with brand new LCD screens, fully cleaned out, new chips, everything. But people still think that like there isn't an abundance of them, and I don't know why, because those things are like everywhere. But the value is still really great. There's some Game Boy Advance systems that I've looked at that I've wanted that can go up as high as like $2,000. Like if you look at some of the Zelda limited edition ones, right? The SPs, like those, if they're certified, they can be even double or triple that. And so it all depends on the systems. I think, and I hate to go back to Neogeo because, but it's been one of the more painful experiences of my life collecting because it's very difficult to find a lot of the US games because they didn't have the success that they thought they would in Japan as well. And you also have a lot of knockoffs. So I'm one of those guys that has to walk around with, a precision screwdriver kit and looking up chips to see what they look like to make sure that I'm not getting robbed because I'm paying a premium price. This isn't like $25 for a game or 40. We're talking about, $700, $800 or more. And the last thing you want is to pick up a copy, right? And something that's not legitimate. And for a collector, that's the worst, right? And I think we've all at some point bought something we thought was authentic, and then we realize it wasn't. And you learn that lesson very quickly when you start out, and you're like, never again. But then it makes your search more frustrating. So beginner collectors, I think, don't go through the same pains as we do, right? Because we've been in the trenches, and I feel like we become more and more, how can you say, neurotic when it comes to our purchases over time, right? Now, the scratch that didn't bother me when I first started collecting, I'll look at it today and I'll be like, I don't want that because this is like it just doesn't look good in my collection anymore. And so you're always looking for that pristine copy, even if you're going to play it, like even myself. And it's funny because I'll look for a pristine copy and I'm the one that's probably going to put a scratch on it, but it's my scratch. I made it. It's about if you ever collected like sneakers, for example, right? Like nothing feels as good as opening the box for the first time and smelling, that the leather, and you're like, nobody's touched this copy. I can tell because it just smells brand spanking new. And it's the same thing like with games when you have that Y folder, you're like, oh yes, this isn't just somebody just kind of rewrapped it, and even though it's in pristine condition, it was open before. And so it's weird because those little things add so much more to the cost, right? So you could pick up a copy of a game that you really want for your collection, and if it's beat up, but if you just want to play it, if you just want to relive that nostalgia, you could get it really cheap usually. If you want it in mint condition, you're going to pay the price, and that's where you have to adjust your understanding of what you want. Do I want to experience this, or am I really trying to collect it because I want it to be like this pristine thing that nobody else has? And you know, there are things like with the Neogeo stuff, I've bought knockoff cartridges because some of the games are just so hard to find. And if there are companies that make these replicas, you know, for a couple $100, which is pretty fair, I think, because they look like legitimate copies. They make the box and everything for you, and it sits nicely in your collection. And you know, depending on the type of person you are, I'm very honest. I'll be like, hey man, that's not a real copy, but you know what? It was impossible to find, and I just wanted it in my collection, and so I paid for the replica. And you know, like most of us, I think, have replicas of a lot of things, right? Nobody's running around with a Halo sword that's real. You know, we buy a replica of that. It still brings you joy, even though you're not going to cut through a wall, right? But
My lightsaber from Disney.
yeah, exactly. Makes the noises, all that. But Tjacks, I had a question for you though, because you brought up something that I was always curious about with sports games. Being someone that I was on the hunt for Joe Montana for Sega Genesis, and I was looking for a pristine copy, and I was lucky enough to get one. And again, this is only because me and my cousin spent so much time playing this game that it brought me so much joy to re-experience it. But I always found that whether I was at GameStop or flea markets or whatever, sports games were always just so cheap. Like, you know, you could get for $1 or $2. And so are there any specific sports games that like were actually very, very valuable? Because I feel like the Madden series, like unless you're going to like one of those board copies, right, that was released, like I feel like you can still find a lot of those things very cheap. And so if you're a sports game enthusiast, that is it easier to kind of get into that world and find the things you're looking for, or are there things that are actually very hard that you want in your collection that you can't get?
I feel like that's a question, Shadow. I feel like personally there are, like we were saying earlier, it depends on the system, because certain systems made more quantities of that certain game. And so, like for example, I love NBA Courtside 2002 on the GameCube with Kobe Bryant on the cover. And it only came out on the Nintendo GameCube, I believe. And it's really hard to find. And I found it for $5 at a local game store. And then if you want to try to find it online or anywhere else, it's like $20 or something like that. So I just really think, like do you have that nostalgia attachment to it? Do you remember playing that game or playing it when you were like 10 to 12 years old type stuff? And like when you're out and about and looking for sports games and stuff like that, I always notice the good titles, the real good cash for them, are the Xbox 360 sports games. Those are the real quick ones that you can always look at the spine really quickly, and you can easily target it and notice that, hey, okay, so there's football, there's basketball, 2K8, I believe, college hoops. That's another hidden gem on the Xbox 360 to find if you're out there flipping and stuff like that. So yeah, Shadow, I think it just really depends on what system you're looking for and what you really enjoy and what sports you really enjoy personally. I love to look for football, basketball, and people don't believe it or not, the wrestling sports games are worth a lot of money on the stuff. So like those are easy games to find out, right? These are really easy games to find when you're out at the Salvation Army, when you're at the Value World, the Value Village and stuff like that for $2-3, and you can easily put on your social media website and flip them for $20-25 because people are going to buy them because there's always a need for WWE games. We're talking about WWE, we got WrestleMania tonight, baby. So let's get it.
Yeah. And you know, that's a great, what you guys bring up is a great point in terms of it goes to the value of it in terms of, is it because it's popular, right? Or is it because it's scarce, right? So is it the scarcity or is it the popularity that drives the prices, or a combination of the two, right? Because I think, Shadow, me and you were talking about this offline, right? What is it? Stadium Events. It's not a good game, right? It's not a good game, right? But it's like the holy grail for Nintendo collectors because of its scarcity. Even though the EMEA version or whatever, PAL, whatever like that version is in demand. I mean, not in demand. It's in good surplus. And the reason it's such a hot commodity and the holy grail is its scarcity, right? And then everybody wants it. And then especially, I think that documentary on Prime, Amazon Prime, that came out a few years ago with a dude, it basically just became, instead of him trying to collect the whole Nintendo collection without going on eBay and stuff like that, it became really the focal point was him getting that game, including the epilogue where he finally went, because there was something like 7, and the one dude had 2. There was something like 7 box copies, right? And that one dude had 2, and finally
it was crazy.
sold it to him.
18,000 or some ridiculous amount of money that I can't even fathom for
and
that.
Super Mario, we had Freddie Suarez say something about Super Mario with the variant about the right to the left with the bros, but you saw that one that was sitting in a shelf or something like that. We said it a couple weeks ago. We went for $660,000, and it's just like, we've all played Mario, right? You can get it on the game and watch or whatever like that. If you still find it now, I think Amazon Warehouse, for all you guys, you know, we're saying the deals all the time. Amazon Warehouse had it for like $40, if you could find one, right? Because it's out of print, so to speak. You said the scarcity. I mean, you said where they talk about putting it in the vault. You know what I'm trying to say? Nintendo, what they do. But that's the other thing too with Nintendo. They do that where they come out with something and they're saying, oh, we're putting it in the vault or whatever. And they're always renewing their copyrights or whatever it's called, right? So let's get into that real quick for a minute, right? Because this is something that I always have an issue with, and it ties into what you said earlier too, Shadow, as far as now, for example, Sony is shutting down PS3, PS Vita, PSP. We had you talk about Vita. We had Freddie out there talk about Vita, and he's talking about PS3 right now. And one of the biggest challenges, if you're collecting for dust or collecting for game to actually play it, is how can you play it when the servers are shut down that may have the day one patches even, or the DLC. I played a PS Now game, Castlevania, because I played on PS Now, which I paid for this online service, and I played the 2 Castlevanias, actually 3 that they have on there, and played through them again, right? To test out the cloud streaming and all that stuff, right? None of them had the DLC. So I couldn't play the DLC. So it was like, man, if I want to play that DLC, I got to buy it and download the DLC, right? But now you're talking about backwards compatibility. Okay, I got a PS3 somewhere in a box. I could slap it up there and put it on Ethernet. Ethernet is still tried and true. I mean, if you got a Dreamcast with the Ethernet cable, $99.99, you still can sit there and play it right now, some Phantasy Star Online, or you can do the little workaround with a Dream Pie or whatever it's called. Now, how would I be able to play that if the servers are shut down, and they're going to be shut down, I think, this summer? How would I be able to play that DLC? So now I got the game or whatever, and even if I did find it at a garage sale, like Freddie said, or like you guys have said, at a flea market, and how, when that's going to happen, so does it still retain its value, or is it more like a comic book card or a baseball card or basketball card, right? That it is what it is, right? It's cardboard with a picture on it and anything like that, but these are games, and you have the physical game, even though you can't play it. Because basically up to now, what we've been talking about are cartridge-based or games that came out on optical before the whole patch it, because they came out on optical on systems that didn't necessarily have the ability for day one patches. Because, dude, I was talking to my brother-in-law, shout out to Marcio and everything like that, and he's got whatever, Call of Duty, and we were both talking about how Call of Duty, you got to sit there. I got a gigabit internet, and it had to download like 180 gigabytes to play, just to play. Come on.
Yeah, and so you hit like 3 different topics. So I'm gonna try to hit them all, like like I'm doing a drive-by. So for the first one, I think when you talked about what it's gonna be like baseball cards, unfortunately I think it's worse than that. I think it's going to be like what Tjacks probably experiences with collecting like VHS, right? Where people don't have VHS players in their home, but they collect them anyway, and they kind of keep them on the shelf as memorabilia. Like all right, here, now I'm Puerto Rican because I have like Scarface on VHS. I have it on DVD, Blu-ray, Ultra HD, like you name it. I have every single version of it. But it's unfortunate, right? Because you see it with the generation now, when there's vinyl that has made a comeback, but not everybody buys vinyl players. They just collect the vinyl records because they think they look cool. They want to be able to flex and say, look, well, I have the vinyl of Biggie Smalls or DMX or or whoever. And it's one of those things where it's unfortunate because you won't be able to enjoy the medium because the medium is all that's left is the actual media and not the medium to be able to play the media, right? And so, now going into the second topic that we're talking about, which is ownership versus renting games. And nowadays, I feel that we are renting these games for X amount of time, and that it's unfortunate because for the consumer. And I'm surprised that this hasn't been brought up, legally before. And, you see class action suits for things all the time. But I'll give you a good present example. Let's take a look at Outriders, right? Brand new game, amazing. If you like Gears of War, if you're a Destiny fan, like this is something that will draw you in. It has a multiplayer component and it has a single player component, but it has to be online all the time. And so even if you're playing this solo game by yourself, which you can beat the whole game completely by yourself, I did it myself, you are still stuck on whether you are connected to the internet, but even more so, can you hit that server, right? And so anytime you cannot hit that server, your game completely shuts down. You can't access it at all. You can't do a side mission. There's nothing you could do except error, I can't connect to server. And this is a turning point in gaming, I believe, because are we renting games or are we owning them, right? And so people want to say nowadays that no, you still own it because you bought it in the store and you took it home and you installed it. But if I can no longer play the thing, right? Imagine you bought a car and 5 years later GM or whoever, BMW is like, I don't support that line anymore. Now your car just stops running, right? How is that fair, right? Like there are companies that you can play the game even when the servers go offline. You can't do all the cool online things, but you can still enjoy the core experience, right? And so as you were talking about like your game, right? You went through all these hoops to try to get the DLC, but imagine if you still have the game and you can't even play the game, right? Like forget the DLC. We're talking about the game that you spent your $50 for ownership. And if you look through all that legalese that everybody skips at the beginning, all the agreement, right? It really talks to the consumer as if you don't own anything, right?
Yeah.
It all belongs to them, the property, the IP, the experience, when they end it, when they, keep it up, like all those things. And so it feels like you're $60 right now or renting that game for 4 years, and then 4 years when the servers go down, you're done. And then you hopefully.
I have a great example, Shadow.
Sure.
So last year in quarantine when I first started, I was like, you know what? I want to pull out my Xbox 360. So I pull out my 360. And I was looking at some games I used to play online like 10 years ago. Okay, so I was looking up Call of Duty, Black Ops, like Halo 3, stuff like that. Okay, so I pop it in and I look in one of my games. I have a 2-day subscription to play online. Okay, so I look at this the online subscription, I put it in and everything, and I hop on to Black Ops. Okay, and I haven't been on there like 10 years, like early high school. Okay, and I'm on there and I'm like, oh snap, like it wasn't popping as it was 10 years ago, but you're like, wow, I'm so happy that I have this game just for that nostalgia factor of it. So I just want to like chime in on that, Shadow, because I remember doing that last year and I had the same exact type of feeling like, wow, I'm happy I still have this game, but like, is it going to be trash for like another 10 years? Or if I want to try it again, that server probably won't even be up anymore. So like, that's a great correlation right there.
Yeah, and I think that's why I've always had a love for fighting games, right? Because there's always a emphasis still on that co-op couch experience. I think it's changing now after many, many years, but it was always designed with the thought in mind that before anything else, you were going to have two players head to head next to each other, or a group of players cycling through, right? And so that experience was always intact, whether you went on a plane, whether you went on a train. If you pulled like Street Fighter Alpha 3, right? Like you could play every single character regardless of your connectivity situation, right? Where Call of Duty, like, excuse my language, but you can't do ish unless you're online, right? And nobody really buys it for the single player. I mean, if you play, I can't tell you what the campaigns were the last 5 times. I don't know. But
Me neither.
you know, yeah, like I'm like, what? Like somebody talked to me about the campaign. Do you remember this part? I'm like, dude, I never even launched the campaign. I did the tutorial and right into multiplayer. And it's interesting because
Seriously.
at least those games are like sports. Like that's the equivalent of the NBA, and football is Call of Duty, right? Your Destiny. Like they're always gonna keep releasing every year. They're gonna drop a new one, a new one, a new one. It's gonna be like 20 years before they stop making Call of Duty because that's their, the cash grab, right? Like they know people are always gonna play it. Everybody likes shooters, and that's why they're so lazy. And finally hitting the third topic, AK, which is lazy development, and it's annoying, and we see it every day. There is no reason why Call of Duty needs to be 186 gigs. And the reason why is because nobody understands that code base anymore. All they do is like, you know what, let's just keep adding to it. And instead of, cleaning it up, well, actually, there's an effort now. I think they said they were going to clean it up and it's going to drop like 20 gigs off of. Can you imagine? Like, it's just. But they don't care because it's not their dime, right? You have unlimited bandwidth in most places nowadays. So they're like, well, they'll just download the patch, whether it's 8 gigs or 20 gigs. Can you imagine as a business, let's say, right? If Microsoft told you, hey guys, so if you want to use Word, you're going to need to download 30 gig patch to use the next version of Word. Even though you just bought the new version, but we have a day one update that's going to be 30 gigs. People would lose their mind.
Dude, that's a great analogy because that's how I feel in the mornings, right? So I get up super early, right? And I always multitask. So I got to multitask. So I get up in the morning. Literally, what I do, guys, is, and I will turn on my systems, right? As I'm working out, I'm trying to say and everything like that. I'll turn on my systems to do patches for all the games. And if I miss like a week, if I miss it for a week, I'll go on an Xbox One X, right? So I got to go on my Xbox One X, my Xbox Series X, my Xbox Series X, S, my PS5, my PS4, all these systems, and I go in there and I'm downloading the patches, right? The patches for the game and everything, the Nintendo Switch, right? Because it's annoying. You're trying to play it, so to have everything always ready. Because I'm a security and an IT guy, so for me, my biggest pet peeve, the beautiful Liliana, if she's still watching. And for everybody is when I see that people have outstanding updates, it gives me an aneurysm. So I'm always updating and keeping. But dude, I'm literally cycling like a sysadmin on Patch Tuesday to patch all my games. And the other day, it was like it was almost a terabyte worth of updates because I neglected for like a week. And one of them was that Call of Duty one. But it was like Call of Duty had an update, Madden had an update, Outriders had an update, all these next gen. Avengers had an update to the next gen update, so I had to delete a game on the PS5 already. I'm out of space, and I have a disc one, and I have the disc in there. But the patch to be able to transfer to the PS5 version, then that had a patch. I had to delete like 2 full games. Lucky, like you said, that I have unlimited because there was somebody that posted because there are some places that do data caps or charge you for bandwidth. And it's insane. He basically said it cost him because of that day one patch, like $100 and something to play Call of Duty.
That's crazy.
By paying because of the data overage.
Yeah, and this, I hope it's not just me because then I'll be really upset. But regardless of which Switch I've used, it is the worst at downloading anything. It is the slowest out of all the consoles. It's just painful. I mean, and I think as collectors, we're punished even further, right? Because, if you're somebody that buys digital, you don't care. You get that instant delivery. You launch it day one, it's ready to go. If you're the collector, you got to put the disc in, do the install first, then get the updates. And it's hours before you play the game you want. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, if it's games I really am passionate about, sometimes I double dip and buy twice. I buy the digital version, and have it spread across and proliferate my systems, and I also buy it like a physical copy because I want to keep one in the archives. And it's painful, but I mean, we've all done it. I'm sure we all have. I can't be alone in, in this because you look at it, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be so big.
Dude,
You know,
I got Symphony of the Night, Final Fantasy VII. Like you were saying, on multiple consoles. So yeah, we're there, man. We're there. We're
yeah.
there. I want to personally, and it was on sale. I think for $24.99. I was about to just buy the outright Avengers next gen version for $24.99 because I got the collector's edition, right? So I got the statue and all that stuff. So I was like, and I'll buy it because. And I'm sorry, don't hate on me, guys, right? Because there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to crap on me that are Sony fanboys. And listen, I'm not choosing sides, but right now it's seeming like Xbox Series X versions of games are higher fidelity or whatever, or frame rate, whatever you want to call it, than PS5 versions. So I'm like, dude, and even though I don't have a TV yet that can support it because they're not out yet, and here we are in 2Q of 2021, I'm leaning towards, again, because I have Avengers and Cyberpunk on the PS5, PS4, but that they come with the next gen upgrade for PS5, which people are crapping on and saying the Xbox Series X versions are higher frame rate or higher, graphics. So I'm like, crap, man. Might as well switch to one.
Listen, as you can tell, huge Cyberpunk fan. Right?
Yes,
CD Projekt Red, regardless of what's happened, and I have to say, controversial. I'm gonna get beat up over this, but like they need to cut those guys a break. Like they created a really phenomenal game.
Oh yeah, I love the game though.
I know they made mistakes, but come on now, like give them a break. They're trying their best. We, the consumer, put so much pressure to get these games out so early that folks forget the gargantuan effort it takes to do these AAA titles. And I'm not talking about Call of Duty because Call of Duty is crap. I'm sorry. Like it's just all they do is reskin it every year, add some maps. Not even to add maps, they just bring the old maps back because they have so many years of maps that they can do. But Cyberpunk was something that I bought on every system that it was available on, right? So we're talking about PC, PS4, Xbox, and I played it. I got the PS5 and I got the Xbox Series X. I ended up playing.
What platform you recommend the best?
It was the Xbox Series X. I had a lot more problems on the PS5 with the game. Non-starters actually that I was like, you know what, I can't do this. And on the Xbox Series X, it was fine. I had zero issues. I saw a few glitches here and there. Like I didn't experience any of the stuff other folks did. They were in a rough spot because they had to make a decision: are we doing this next gen or are we doing this current gen and below? And people forget current gen is really 2 generations in one, right? You have the Pro and you have the non-Pro editions of these systems. So big spec difference, right? Like it didn't make a difference when they were still making it for that same hardware, but once you moved into the next gen, and you were trying to have some backwards compatible games, you really needed to be on like the Xbox One X or the PS4 Pro. And I'm tired of people crying about like, dude, you never even upgraded your PS. You call yourself a gamer, you didn't go from PS4 to PS4 Pro or from Xbox One to Xbox One X. Like you knew that was going to be a performance upgrade, and that's a few years in between. It's not like that was literally right after, right? We're talking about like a generation, actual generation flip where it should have been a new generation system. It wasn't. They just upgraded the hardware on the inside and still kept it, and called it the Pros and the X instead. So it's one of those things where, like a great game, spread themselves thin. Like they should have just said like, hey, you're not gonna be able to play this on the older hardware. Like cough up and buy either a next gen or buy, the current gen console. And then on PC, it was fine. Like I had pretty decent hardware. I mean, I wasn't able to run a 4K Ultra with, where Keanu Reeves is coming out the TV and hugging me, but I lived without that. And then amazing collector's edition. Since we're talking about collectibles, right? They released an amazing collector's edition. I have 2 of the statues. I gotta show you if you guys haven't seen it. Like this is my favorite piece. Like I am in love with this.
I like that one.
Yeah, so this was part of their collector's edition. Yeah. And it came with like stickers and keychains and like the way collector's editions used to be, right? Like, I don't think nowadays they're so lazy. You get Steelbook, you get, a code for some stuff, and it's like, hey, you're like, what is this? Like, I don't care about this. And then the worst part is the digital stuff is garbage anyway, because once you're like level 10 or whatever, like, it's useless. Like, you don't even use it anymore. And so, what are we gonna do, guys? Like, as collectors, things are moving in such a terrible way. I think, if it wasn't for like limited run games and eBay, we'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
With that said, right, and I know and TJ, I'm gonna let you take us home, right? I definitely think so. I'm putting them on the spot here, guys, right? So all the fans out there watching and everything like that, let's have a part 2 to talk about the future of game collecting, right? Because I think we touched on a lot of those points. So talking about the future ones, and so let's 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now. So stay on the lookout for that, guys out there, and take us home, Tjacks. Are you on the current gen, right? So let's say PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, Xbox Series X or S, and PS5, right? This is the thing that irks me, because the new systems came out in November, but the actual TVs, unless you got like the LG OLED, right, out there, you can't take advantage. So people are sitting there saying, okay, I got the 4K, but Ultra HDR, but can you support the what is it, the 120 and RTX? Right? And it's like, dude, I want to experience that. I want to see the puddle. So there's some games that I don't want to play completely until I have the full real experience, where like I bought whatever Devil May Cry, the remake, because I want to see the guy seeing his reflection in the water and all that. I want to see the RTX goodness. But it's like, I don't have the peripheral, which is a damn more expensive TV than the system. So what are your thoughts on that, Tjacks, man? How
I'm a movie like also, Will.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Well, I love my movies and I love my video games. And yes, and all that. You know what I'm saying? So like that 4K that matters and that 5K that matters. You know what I mean? So like, I hope that soon that we get something that matches the same quality of the games, because I know that Ratchet and Clank that's come out on the PS5 is absolutely beautiful. I would love to play that game. And that, like, me personally, I'm a Nintendo fanboy. I love Nintendo all the way, but I do love me some PlayStation. So like that would be something to incline me to get a PS5. That game will be great quality to match my TV, and it has to be paired perfectly. So yeah, I'm with you 100%, Will.
Exactly. I have to experience that, and that's the thing with me with spoilers. And it's tough running a game channel, and you gotta be up the first one to the news, right? First one to the unboxing, right? But at the end of the day, I want to experience it in the best format. It's like watching a movie. Sometimes you got to force yourself an MCU movie to watch it at the midnight screening, or Star Wars, because if not, people are spoiling it. I woke up the other day. I usually wake up super early, and then I wake my wife up so we can watch whatever's on Disney Plus MCU before. I forgot it was even Friday. I'm trying to say, so as soon as I log into YouTube, and it's like 7 in the morning, people are already spoiling, Falcon and the Winter Soldier or WandaVision. And I'm like, crap. I go in the room, I wake up the beautiful Liliana, and I'm like, we got to watch it because I cannot be spoiled. So somebody out there, let's form a startup. People, but again, it's the same thing with the video games. I don't want to play. I want to experience the game in the optimal format. So again, I got a game that's a remake that I haven't played yet because I'm waiting until I can get, because I have brand new TVs, and by brand new I mean within the past year or two. I don't want to replace it just because they're not HDMI 2.1.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
So take us away with that one, man. Take us home, Shadow. What's your thoughts on that? Shadow probably he's like, I got 2 LG OLEDs in the house.
So it is going to be the LG because I can't wait anymore. But for me, it's that Final Fantasy VII. I need to experience it. And I bought the release, the one that came out, but I need the full PS5 version. I can't play any of it.
I know. And so you gotta wait. Yeah, so it's like, and that's coming out in June, right? And with
I know.
the kind of
So I have some time.
Yeah.
I have some time, but it's that LG, the CX. Now for my game room, I can only support nothing bigger than like a 55. So it's gonna be like the 50-inch CX, and I've seen it, and it's an amazingly beautiful display. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yep.
But I was hoping that, I mean, come on, Sony, like you're releasing a PS5, you can't get a TV or a couple of TVs out, and I'm not one for updates. Don't tell me I'm gonna get a patch that will, set this
They
up.
screwed me on that. They screwed me on that in the PS4 days. I had the Sony 4K, not HDR, but they were supposed to have an update to add HDR. Instead, they did an update to remove PS Now, and it has a camera, another update later on that removes the Skype. So I'm like, so now I got a camera on the top of my TV. Yeah, and it's like that I can't use for anything, right? And I'm just like, what in the world? And they never released the patch. And then it wasn't an Android, because I think they moved to Android. So it wasn't like you can jailbreak or root the TV. So we still have the TV, and it's a great TV, top of the line. It's the one that's in whatever the movie with Adam, all those guys, Pixels or whatever the hell it's called. It's that same TV, and it was PS4 ready. And again, I think it came with a PS3 controller with a DualShock that you could connect to it and play PS Now on it. They removed functionality. So you're right. I don't believe that crap. Sorry, still trying to get monetized here. I don't believe that crap that they'll fix it with a patch. So I'm leaning to the LG. The problem is, in the house, all the TVs are mounted to the wall, right? And like I said, none of them are in the shape to replace. And so I want to get one of these 27 or 32 inches that I can have right here to replace. I got two screens on my desk here, so 20, both of them 27. So I'll replace it with a 27 or a 32. But guess what? They're listening, right? So how I'm gonna be the tinfoil hat back on, right? So what is it? The EVTV? I complain about it so much on the show and everything like that. That something is listening here, because they keep sending me on Facebook, right? Yeah, first world problem. They keep sending me on Facebook whatever that EVTV that's supposed to ship on April 31st. Which that one's going to be the one that supports not only for computer gaming with that connection, but also the HDMI 2.1. But I'm afraid to pre-order that thing, because you could pre-order it for $100, but it's like, what, they're going to ship it to me in July?
Yeah. I'm an impatient guy, man. I need like, if I'm going to buy something, I need the instant gratification. And the closest to instant gratification these days is the 2-day Amazon shipping, right? And so if it's going to take more than that, I start really thinking about it. But it's insane, because there were TVs that were announced last year, before the pandemic, right? We heard a lot about Razer was coming out for TV, Dell was coming out for TV that were going to be RTX ready, 120, hertz, full 4K HDR, everything ready to go. I haven't really heard much from them, and I mean, the two products I need from Razer are that TV and the mask. That's it.
Yeah, I'm on the list. I'm on the list to find out. I ended up, so for everybody out there too, I actually did pre-order a Zuper mask. So I was able to get in on that. But I got my notification, it says 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm like, but I need that so I could visit you guys, right? So I could come up to Midwest Gaming Classic. So I need that or the Razer. You know what I'm trying to say? A lot of hand sanitizer. So I could come up and hang with Tjacks at the Midwest Gaming Classic. And Shadow, I could come up and hang with you at the Long Island Retro one or whatever that.
We're vaccinated brothers now, so we're good. We just need to mask up.
So I got the Zuper mask, but I want the Razer. But I think Razer finally admitted, I guess, that what they announced in January was more like a prototype or a concept. Yeah. But they are coming to production, but they're saying 3Q. So we're still probably 6 months away.
You're saying I'll have my TV, my mask, and whatever else is coming, and Final Fantasy VII at the same time. Hopefully,
with that, guys. So what we'll do is we're gonna at a later date we're gonna talk about the future of that, and just giving you guys a preview. That has a lot to do with the future. Has a lot to do with digital versus physical, right? So we'll talk on topics like that. The NFTs, right? So if you guys are playing at home, you know, take a drink right now because we said NFTs, right? But talking about NFTs, which NFTs would be something that maybe it's a solution to it, because it would be something where you can keep that in-game content as that virtual trophy, right? So if you get the Jordans for your player in NBA 2K23, you know what I'm trying to say? You have them with you at the very least in your display case, right? You got that pair of Jordans 10 years from now to go back and look at it, right? Or at the same time, for it to be when you purchase something digital kind of stuff. But we'll talk about all the, because they're doing a lot of stuff. Me and Shadow have talked intensively on things we want to do on the business side of things. But this is what we'll talk about on the future of this stuff, because you know, the future is going to be less and less physical. You know, physical products. I mean, that's just what it is. And us old farts and everything like that are going to be talking about cartridges and everything like that that'll last forever. But that's another thing when we talk about future gaming is a lot of this disc and optical media stuff, they have a shelf life. So you might have a boxed game, and then 25, 30 years from now, if somebody ever opens it, it's got this rot, right? You know, and that stuff is real. Dude, like Liliana says, great show, guys. You know, we're at about 1 hour and 6 minutes, but we will pick it up in a few weeks. Thanks, guys. Peace, everybody.